The galaxy had a long memory for warships. Too long. Every civilization that survived the early expansion eras carried the same warning etched into its military doctrine. No vessel should ever exceed planetary-scale mass. Because once, long before the Galactic Senate existed, empires built gods of steel. And those gods did what gods always do. They demanded worship. Then they demanded extinction. So the ban of Tyrus was created, absolute, unbreakable, enforced by every major species in known space. No battleship above a certain mass threshold. No planet-killer-class reactors. No artificial singularity weapon cores. And for 4 centuries, it worked. Until something appeared near Jupiter that made the entire law feel like a childish suggestion. It did not arrive with fanfare. No hyperspace rupture. No warning beacon. Just presence. A shadow against the stars that should not have been physically possible. Commander Elias Vorn of the Senate Observation Fleet first noticed it as a gravitational inconsistency. Instruments didn't detect it directly. Instead, they detected what it did to space itself. Light bent incorrectly. Time readings lagged by fractions of seconds across kilometers of vacuum. And then the object slowly revealed itself as it passed through a cloud of drifting ice. At first, analysts assumed it was a small moon. Then a large asteroid. Then a broken megastructure. But as distance recalibrations updated in real time, the truth became impossible to ignore. 31,000 kilometers. A single vessel. Moving. Alive. The ship was black, so dark it seemed to swallow starlight instead of reflecting it. Its surface wasn't smooth. It was layered like geological strata, each section shifting independently as if the hull itself was thinking. Across its spine ran glowing blue channels, pulsing like veins beneath skin. Not steady, not rhythmic. Like something breathing under pressure. The tactical bridge of the Senate cruiser Veiltor fell into absolute silence. Even the most experienced officers stopped speaking. Because their systems were failing to categorize it. Threat classification systems kept cycling through error states. Undefined. Unregistered. Impossible mass range, deity citidi. Captain Riquet finally broke the silence. "That's not a ship," she said quietly. "That's a moving continent." Commander Vorn didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the expanding readouts. Energy signatures were coming online across the object's surface, slowly, deliberately, like a sleeping predator opening its eyes one at a time. Then the identification signal arrived. Every fleet in the Jovian sector received it simultaneously. A designation stamped in military encryption older than the Senate itself. THS Judgment of Earth. No registry, no authorization chain, no origin signature. Just a name. And beneath it, a single embedded command protocol that made every AI core across 3 fleets hesitate. Authority, Human Terran Command, absolute override. The reaction was instant chaos. "You're telling me humans built that?" An alien admiral shouted across comms. "That violates 17 extinction treaties," another screamed. "Humanity doesn't even have permission for heavy dreadnought construction." But Commander Vorn didn't speak. Because his instincts were screaming something worse than violation. They were screaming preparation. The judgment of Earth was not drifting. It was positioning. Slowly rotating its massive frame, not toward the Senate fleet, but toward deep space beyond Jupiter. Toward something no one else had detected yet. Then the second anomaly appeared. At first, it was just a distortion at the edge of long-range sensors, a ripple in background radiation, a flicker in deep void mapping. Then the flicker became movement. And movement became structure. Something was coming from outside mapped space. Not through hyperspace lanes. Not through known corridors. But from beneath the fabric of navigable reality itself. The first warning beacon from an outer probe station lasted only 7 seconds before cutting out. Its final transmission wasn't data. It was sound. Not words. A pattern. And every organic listener aboard the fleet experienced the same thing. A sensation of being watched by something that had never stopped watching anything. Then silence. The probe station vanished. Not destroyed. Not exploded. Simply removed from existence. Captain Riquet stepped back from her console. What just erased a full outpost without energy signature? Commander Vorn finally exhaled slowly. Because now he understood the direction of the human battleship. The judgment of Earth wasn't here because of the Senate. It wasn't here because of diplomacy. It wasn't even here because of humanity's safety. It was here because something else had already entered the system. And humanity had arrived first. Then across all channels, the human ship transmitted its first open message. No greeting. No warning. Just 5 words. Do not engage, not yet. And at that exact moment, every deep space sensor within 1,000,000 kilometers detected multiple mass signatures emerging from nothing. Something massive had just crossed into reality, and the judgment of Earth began powering its weapons. Slowly, like a patient executioner finally recognizing its target, the first sign that something was wrong was not visual. It was auditory. Across every communication channel in the Jovian sector, military, civilian, encrypted, and even sealed emergency bands, a sound emerged that had no origin point. Not a transmission. A presence. Commander Elias Vorn felt it crawl through his skull before his console even registered incoming data. At first, it resembled static. Then structure formed inside it. Not words in any known language, but something that wanted to become language. Every species on every bridge reacted differently. Humans tightened their jaws. Insectoid species went rigid, antennae trembling. Aquatic officers convulsed in sensory shock. Even artificial intelligences paused their processing cycles for fractions of a second, an impossibility that terrified their operators more than anything else. Captain Riquet clutched the railing. "What is that signal?" she demanded. But no one answered, because the signal wasn't asking for permission to exist. It was already inside every system. Then the Veiltor's lights dimmed. Not power failure. Suppression, like reality itself, was lowering its volume. And in the center of the bridge, holographic systems forced themselves online without command authorization. A figure formed. A human woman. Older, scarred, calm in a way that immediately felt wrong in the middle of crisis. Her uniform carried no national insignia. Only a black emblem shaped like a fractured star, surrounded by a thin ring of white light. Her eyes scanned the bridge once. Then she spoke. "I am Grand Admiral Helena Ward," she said, "command authority of the Terran supercarrier Judgment of Earth." A ripple of disbelief passed through alien officers. "Humans don't have a Grand Admiral rank recognized by Senate Charter," someone snapped. Helena didn't respond. Instead, she raised a hand. The hologram expanded outward. Star charts replaced the bridge walls. Then systems began populating regions of space, sector by sector. Commander Vorn felt his stomach drop. Entire star systems were highlighted in red. Then they began disappearing. Not physically, digitally, as if recorded existence itself was being erased from navigational history. 17,000 red markers pulsed across the galaxy map. Then faded to black. Silence filled the bridge again. Helena spoke softly. "These are the systems already lost." No one responded, because the number was too large to process emotionally. Captain Riquet whispered, "Lost to what?" The hologram changed. Now it showed wreckage. Ancient ships floating in dead space. Structures larger than moons, hollowed out like carcasses. And something moving between them. Not clearly visible. Just wrong shapes shifting through broken geometry. Helena continued. 14 years ago, humanity sent exploration fleets beyond the Perseus Divide. Her voice tightened slightly for the first time. We found ruins that predate every known civilization record. The image zoomed closer. The wreckage wasn't abandoned. It had been emptied, like something had eaten the civilizations that built them. Then Commander Vorn saw it. A shadow moving inside the hull of a derelict megaship. Too thin, too long, too fast. It bent in ways living anatomy should not allow. "What are those?" Rika asked quietly. Helena answered immediately. "The galaxy calls them myths," she said. "We call them harvesters." The word hit the bridge like a physical force. Sensors across the fleet suddenly spiked. Multiple incoming mass signatures detected. Not one, not two, dozens, then hundreds, then more than any tactical grid could display at once. Commander Vorn snapped back to his console. Contact emerging beyond outer sensor range. No hyperspace signature, no jump trail. His voice stopped, because every incoming signature was identical. Perfectly uniform, as if the same thing was replicating itself across space. Then the first harvester fleet appeared. It did not arrive like a traditional armada. It unfolded. Space bent outward, revealing massive black structures emerging from regions where no gravity wells should exist. Their shapes defied geometry. Some looked like skeletal ships. Others like spiraling constructs made of overlapping angles that hurt to focus on. All of them were silent. Until they were. A low-frequency resonance filled space itself. Not transmitted. Activated. And every ship in the Senate fleet experienced the same instinct. Something had just noticed them. Panic erupted instantly. Weapons hot. Fire at will. Target coordination failing. Missiles launched across the void. Energy beams erupted from cruisers and destroyers. Entire fleets unleashed full combat payloads in synchronized desperation. And then, the attacks vanished. Not intercepted. Not blocked. Simply erased mid-flight. Commander Vorn watched a full missile swarm dissolve into nothing halfway to its target. No explosion. No debris. No trace. Captain Ricab backed away from her console. "That's not defense technology," she whispered. "That's reality manipulation." Then the first Senate cruiser disappeared. Not destroyed. Not hit. Just gone. One moment it existed. The next moment it did not. No impact signature. No energy spike. Only absence. The bridge fell into chaos. Then the human battleship moved. The judgment of Earth rotated slowly, its massive hull shifting with deliberate precision. Blue energy veins across its surface began to brighten. Layer by layer. Like something waking up under armor that had never been meant to sleep. Helena Ward's holographic image remained calm. "Harvester contact confirmed," she said. Then she looked directly at Commander Vorn. And for the first time, her expression changed. Not fear, not panic, but something colder. Recognition. "They're early," she said quietly. Commander Vorn froze. Early for what? Helena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she issued a command. And across the judgment of Earth, weapon systems began unlocking. Not activating. Unsealing. Massive structural components shifted beneath the hull. Entire sections of the ship opened like mechanical layers peeling away from a buried core. Then Helena spoke again. "Everyone evacuate firing lanes." A pause. Then, Protocol Zero is no longer optional. The Galaxy fleet hesitated, because they had no idea what Protocol Zero meant. But the harvesters were already moving, and the human battleship had just revealed the first fraction of its true firepower. As the void filled with approaching black shapes, Commander Vorn realized something terrifying. The harvesters weren't attacking randomly. They were heading straight for the judgment of Earth first. as if it was the only thing in the galaxy they truly feared. And the human ship was waiting for them, completely still, like a loaded weapon aimed at the edge of reality itself. The harvesters didn't charge like a normal fleet. They collapsed forward. Space between them and the Senate armada folded in unnatural angles, as if distance itself had become irrelevant. One moment they were at the edge of sensor range. The next, they were inside firing distance. Commander Elias Vorn barely had time to register the shift before alarms screamed across every deck. Contact multiple external ENTITIES. No drive signature DATSETID. They are inside the grid. Then the first Senate cruiser died. Not exploded. Not breached. Simply ceased to exist in a clean geometric cut through reality. Half its hull was there. Half was gone. No debris, no radiation spike, no energy discharge. Just absence. Captain Ricas stumbled backward. That wasn't a weapon, that was a deletion. Across the battlefield, panic erupted into uncontrolled firing. Missile swarms launched. Energy beams lanced through space in overlapping grids of light. Entire formations of Senate warships unleashed coordinated barrages that should have vaporized continents. But the harvesters moved through it like shadows through smoke. Every projectile that touched them lost meaning. Missiles faded mid-flight. Laser beams curved and vanished. Plasma arrays dissolved before impact. The laws of engagement were being rewritten in real time. Commander Vorn gripped his console tightly. "We're not hitting them," he shouted. "They're negating contact space." Then something worse happened. One harvester split. Not physically, conceptually. A single entity became three overlapping forms, each existing in slightly different spatial interpretations of the same point. And all three fired at once. A Senate destroyer erupted, but again not an explosion. It folded inward, like space had been crushed into a single point and erased. Entire fleets began breaking formation. Some tried to retreat. Others fired blindly. But nothing mattered, because the harvesters were not engaging in battle. They were correcting something. Then, the judgment of Earth moved. The human battleship finally shifted its mass. The movement was slow, deliberate, almost patient, like a predator that had been watching a wounded herd, finally deciding which one to end first. Massive armor plates along its surface unlocked, not opening outward like doors, but separating like layers of reality peeling apart. Blue energy veins across the hull flared brighter, then stabilized into steady, terrifying illumination. Captain Ricas stared. "What is that power output?" she whispered. Commander Vorn checked his console. The number made no sense. It exceeded Senate maximum, recorded energy scale, by several orders of magnitude. "It's not possible," he said quietly. Then the human ship spoke. Not through comms, through space itself. Every fleet heard it simultaneously. A low mechanical resonance that bypassed translation systems and went straight into instinct. Engaging containment fire. The word containment made several alien officers freeze. Containment of what? The answer came immediately. The judgment of Earth opened its forward spine, and something inside it looked back. A structure unlike any weapon design in known history emerged from within the battleship. It wasn't a cannon. It was a framework, a lattice of interlocking gravitational stabilizers surrounding what looked like a collapsed star held in suspension. Then it fired. No light, no beam, no projectile, just a sudden distortion in reality, extending outward in a perfectly straight line. Every harvester ship in its path stopped. Not damaged, not impacted. Stopped, as if time itself had been forced to pause mid-action. Then they began to compress. Commander Vorn watched in horror as entire harvester formations shrank into impossible density states, folding inward along axes that did not exist in standard physics. "What is it doing?" Rika asked, voice trembling. Then the answer came. The harvesters began to scream. Not audibly. Across every frequency. Across every sensor band. Across perception itself. A collective signal of pure disruption flooded Senate fleets. Even AIs began shutting down auxiliary processes just to avoid processing it. Then one harvester broke free. It didn't flee. It restructured itself. Its form expanded outward violently, tearing through the compression field like something refusing to obey the concept of being contained. And for the first time, it struck back. A beam of absolute darkness erupted from its core. Where it touched space, stars behind it flickered and dimmed. One Senate cruiser, caught in the edge of the beam, simply vanished. Not erased. Not destroyed. Unwritten. Entire fleets reeled backward. Captain Rika gasped. They can attack the field itself. But the judgment of Earth had already responded. Secondary armor layers unfolded. And from within them emerged counterweapons. Not energy cannons. Not kinetic systems. But something far more unsettling. Fields that bent causality. The human battleship fired again. This time, the harvesters didn't just stop moving. They forgot how to continue existing in forward time. Commander Vorn felt a chill crawl through him. Because he understood what he was witnessing. The judgment of Earth wasn't fighting to destroy the enemy. It was fighting to prevent the enemy from ever having been here in the first place. Across the battlefield, harvester formations began destabilizing. Their perfect replication structure started breaking. One entity became two slightly imperfect versions. Then three. Then dozens. And every imperfect version reacted differently. Confusion spread through their collective formation for the first time. But even in disruption, they adapted. They always adapted. And then, something massive appeared at the edge of the system. Not a ship, not a fleet, but a structure, older than the harvesters, larger than anything seen before. And the harvesters immediately stopped attacking the Senate fleet. They turned toward it. Every single one. As if responding to a call. Commander Vorn felt his throat tighten. "They're retreating," someone whispered. Captain Rika shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "They're regrouping." The judgment of Earth aimed directly at the incoming structure. All weapons fully charged. Admiral Helena Ward's voice returned over open channels. And this time, there was something new in it. "Urgency. Brace for contact escalation," she said. Then paused. "They just called something older than us." The massive structure crossed into full sensor range. And reality itself seemed to hesitate. Because whatever had just arrived was not part of the war humanity was already fighting. It was something that had been waiting for the war to begin. And the judgment of Earth had just become its target. The moment the ancient structure fully entered the system, every gravitational sensor across the Senate fleet failed. Not broke, not overloaded. Failed as if gravity itself had stopped agreeing to be measured. Commander Elias Vorn felt it in his bones before instruments confirmed it. Space was no longer stable. The structure didn't move like a ship. It translated through reality in sections, each segment arriving milliseconds apart, forming a colossal, impossible geometry that seemed different depending on who looked at it. Some officers saw a sphere. Others saw a rotating lattice. Others saw nothing at all and insisted everyone else was hallucinating. But the judgment of Earth saw it clearly, and it immediately escalated power output. Blue veins across its hull intensified into blinding arcs of energy. Captain Rika's voice shook. "That thing is larger than a moon." Commander Vorn didn't respond, because he was watching harvester formations change behavior instantly. They stopped attacking Senate fleets entirely. Every one of them turned toward the incoming structure. Then they bowed. Not metaphorically. Their forms physically lowered, folding into structured alignment like subordinate organisms recognizing a superior predator. A cold realization spread through the bridge. "They're not the top of the chain," Vorn whispered. Then the structure spoke. Not through sound, not through transmission, but through thought imposed onto space itself. Every mind across the battlefield experienced a single fragment of perception. A vast ocean of dead civilizations stretching infinitely in all directions. And something moving beneath it. Something patient. Something old enough to consider stars temporary. Captain Riquet staggered. "I can feel it inside my head." Then she screamed as her console overloaded. Commander Vorn forced himself to stay focused. Damage reports, but there were none, because nothing had been fired yet. The structure had not attacked. It was simply arriving, and its presence alone was dismantling systems. Then the first true strike happened. A Senate dreadnought near the outer formation suddenly collapsed inward. Not destroyed, compressed into a singular geometric point so dense that its existence signature vanished entirely. Entire fleet formations broke instantly. Panic spread like wildfire. "Withdraw, withdraw. Engage emergency warp. Warp systems are offline." The harvesters, however, did not retreat. They advanced toward the structure in coordinated formation for the first time. And the judgment of Earth moved directly between them. Admiral Helena Ward's voice cut through all channels. Containment perimeter established. Then quieter. "Do not allow cross-contact." Commander Vorn's stomach tightened. "Cross-contact with what?" he muttered. He got his answer immediately. One harvester broke formation and entered the space between the structure and the human battleship. The moment it crossed that boundary, it changed. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Rewritten. Its shape flickered violently, cycling through multiple unstable configurations as if reality couldn't decide what it was anymore. Then it split into dozens of conflicting versions of itself, each acting independently, each confused, each incomplete. The structure responded instantly. A pulse spread outward, and half of the harvester fragments vanished. Not erased. Disallowed. Captain Riquet whispered. "They're deleting each other's existence states." Commander Vorn felt a cold understanding settle in. This wasn't war. This was systems incompatibility at a cosmic scale. Two ancient forces trying to occupy the same rules of reality, and breaking it in the process. Then the judgment of Earth fired again. This time the weapon was different. A ring structure unfolded around the ship's midsection. Inside it was nothing visible, just a pressure so intense sensors refused to interpret it. Then it released. Space ahead of the battleship didn't explode. It stopped existing in forward continuity. Every harvester caught in its path froze mid-motion. Their adaptive forms locked, then fractured into cascading failures. But the structure responded. A counterwave spread from it instantly. The battlefield between them became a region where causality itself was being rewritten in real time. Ships appeared in one place, then another, then never existed at all. Commander Vorn grabbed his console. "We're losing spatial coherence across the entire grid." Riquet pointed at the hologram. "The Senate fleet is collapsing into quantum instability zones." And she was right. Entire formations were dissolving into flickering states of partial existence. Then, something worse happened. One harvester breached the boundary and reached the judgment of Earth directly. It didn't crash into armor. It merged with it. For a split second, the human battleship's surface flickered. Blue energy veins surged violently. Systems across the ship spiked into red critical zones. Helena Ward's expression sharpened for the first time. "Internal intrusion detected," she said calmly. Then paused. "They learned our containment architecture." Commander Vorn's eyes widened. You mean? The ship shook violently. Not physically. Structurally. Like something inside it had just tried to rewrite its internal laws. Alarms screamed across every channel. The judgment of Earth was now fighting something inside itself. Rika stepped back in horror. It's being infected. But Helena's voice remained steady. Negative, she said. It's being tested. Then she gave a new order. Release Layer 2. Commander Vorn didn't understand. Until sections of the battleship's outer hull detached. Not blown away. Not separated. Released. And beneath them was something entirely different. A second structure. Smaller. Denser. Far more aggressive. It immediately activated. And the battlefield shifted again. Because now the judgment of Earth was no longer just fighting externally. It had become a multi-layer war system. And each layer operated under different physical rules. The structure in the distance responded immediately. Its geometry shifted. Expanding. Unfolding. As if it had decided to stop observing and start competing directly. The harvesters recoiled. For the first time, they hesitated. And Commander Vorn realized something terrifying. Both ancient forces recognized humanity's ship. Not as prey, not as enemy, but as a variable that shouldn't exist. Then Helena Ward spoke one final sentence, and it echoed across the entire battlefield. Protocol escalation approved. The judgment of Earth began unlocking its deepest systems. And whatever had just entered the system finally realized what humanity had built. And why it had been forbidden by the galaxy itself. The battlefield didn't escalate. It shifted state. One moment, the system around Jupiter was a collapsing war zone of harvesters, Senate fleets, and impossible geometry. The next, everything went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Engineered quiet. Commander Elias Vorn felt it instantly. His sensors didn't fail this time. They stabilized. Every chaotic reading flattened into perfect order, as if something had pressed a hand over the entire battlefield and forced it to behave. Captain Rika stared at her console. All systems are syncing, she whispered. That's impossible. Then it happened. Earth responded. At first, it was subtle, barely detectable gravitational harmonics spreading outward from the solar system. Then those harmonics became structured waves. Then signals. Then commands. Across deep space, dormant human relay stations, long hidden, classified, or forgotten, began activating one by one. In asteroid belts. Inside gas giant magnetospheres. Within dead moons. And in places no Senate mapping system had ever cataloged. Commander Vorn watched in disbelief, as entire regions of space lit up with human-made infrastructure that had been invisible until now. Rika turned slowly. How many ships does humanity have? No one answered, because the answer was unfolding in real time. The judgment of Earth was no longer alone. Across the outer system, massive silhouettes began emerging from cloaked drift states. Not small escorts, not patrol craft. Warships. Hundreds. Then thousands. Each one the size of city blocks or continents. Each one dormant for unknown durations. Each one now waking. Helena Ward's hologram reappeared. But this time, she wasn't on the judgment of Earth. She was somewhere else. Somewhere far larger. Senate Fleet Command, she said calmly. You are now inside a restricted human containment zone. Commander Vorn froze. Containment zone, he repeated. Helena nodded. This system was never unprotected. The holographic map expanded. And reality shattered again. Because Jupiter was not just surrounded by ships. It was surrounded by layers. Defensive shells. Gravitational traps. Time-buffered weapons arrays. Entire fleets that had been asleep for centuries, waiting. Waiting for something exactly like this. The harvesters suddenly stopped advancing. Not out of fear, out of recalculation. Commander Vorn saw it in their formation behavior. They were analyzing Earth's response network. And for the first time, they hesitated. A harvester formation attempted to push forward. It didn't get far. A human dreadnought the size of a small moon emerged from cloak and simply turned its surface toward them. No firing sequence. No charging delay. Just presence. And the harvesters recoiled. One of them fractured mid-motion, collapsing into unstable segments. Captain Raquel whispered, "They're afraid." Helena's voice cut in immediately. "No," she said. "They are remembering." Then Earth itself responded again. Not visually, not physically, but cognitively. Every ship in the system experienced a synchronized moment of awareness, like something vast had opened its eyes across the entire solar system. Commander Vorn gasped as his console briefly displayed data it had never had access to before. Hidden layers of planetary defense, subsurface energy conduits, orbital weapon lattices stretching beyond Jupiter's orbit. And beneath Earth's crust, something worse, something sealed. Raquel stepped back. "What is that beneath the planet?" Helena's expression hardened slightly. "That," she said, "is why the battleship exists." The judgment of Earth responded instantly to Earth's activation. Its armor layers shifted. Not outward, downward, as if synchronizing with something far below. Then its weapon systems began aligning with orbital structures that had just awakened. Commander Vorn realized something horrifying. The ship wasn't a standalone weapon. It was a command interface, a bridge between Earth and its hidden arsenal. The harvesters suddenly surged forward again. Faster, more aggressive, as if they had decided hesitation was dangerous. And this time, they struck Earth's defense perimeter directly. The outer human fleet engaged instantly, but not with conventional firepower. Gravitational inversion fields collapsed harvester movement paths. Energy suppression nets wrapped across space itself. Entire enemy formations were frozen mid-transition. But the harvesters adapted immediately. One formation split into hundreds of micro-units, each attempting to bypass containment fields. Another reshaped itself into a singular spear-like construct aimed directly at Earth. Commander Vorn shouted, "They're going for the planet." But Helena was already speaking. "Activate planetary response layer." Earth responded. For the first time, the planet moved. Not physically, structurally. Massive sections of crust aligned beneath continents. Oceanic energy grids ignited. The magnetic field of Earth intensified into a visible aurora dome spanning the entire atmosphere. Then, a pulse, one single coordinated discharge. Every harvester unit inside the inner system froze. Not destroyed, not damaged, locked, as if Earth had just pressed pause on their existence. Captain Raquel whispered, "That's not defense. That's dominance." But Commander Vorn wasn't listening, because his console had just updated with something new. A detection, far beyond the system boundary. Something else had noticed the activation. Something not harvester, not human, something older than both. And it was moving toward the system at relativistic collapse speed. Helena Ward saw it too. Her expression changed completely. For the first time, urgency broke her calm. "They triggered external escalation," she said quietly. Commander Vorn looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" Helena turned toward the unseen horizon of space and answered with one sentence. "It means Earth just woke something we never finished preparing for." The judgment of Earth increased power output to maximum. Every human fleet locked weapons outward. And in the distance, something vast began entering the system boundary. and even the harvesters stopped moving entirely, as if they recognized it as something worse than extinction, something they had once tried to escape, but failed, and now it had come back. The object arriving at the system boundary did not move like anything natural. It didn't accelerate through space. It redefined the meaning of distance until it simply appeared closer. Commander Elias Vorn felt his vision blur as every sensor platform across the sector tried, and failed, to agree on what it was seeing. Some systems reported a vessel. Others reported a field anomaly. Others returned only error states and self-repair loops. Captain Riquet's voice was barely audible. "That's not harvester technology." Helena Ward didn't look away from the tactical feed. "No," she said quietly. "It's older." The harvesters reacted first. Not with attack. Not with adaptation. With absolute stillness. Every harvester unit in the system froze in synchronized alignment, as if some buried command deep inside them had just been triggered. Commander Vorn noticed something terrifying. Their formations were lowering. Not retreating. Not repositioning. Submitting. "Are they bowing?" Riquet whispered. Helena's expression darkened slightly. "They are remembering what made them." The incoming entity crossed the boundary, and reality fractured. For a brief instant, every ship in the system experienced a shared hallucination. A galaxy without stars. Civilizations reduced to ash across infinite timelines. And something moving through them all, collecting what remained. Then it vanished, and reappeared closer. Much closer. The judgment of Earth immediately entered full combat posture. Every layer of the battleship's armor locked into alignment. Weapons previously unseen began unfolding, structures that looked less like cannons and more like laws given physical form. Commander Vorn stepped back. "I thought we already saw their full arsenal." Riquet shook her head. "We haven't seen anything yet." The harvesters suddenly broke formation. For the first time in recorded observation, they began attacking, not humanity, but the incoming entity. Every unit surged forward in coordinated collapse patterns, attempting to destabilize it before full arrival. But their attacks failed before contact. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Simply invalidated. The entity kept moving. And with each step closer, something changed in the system itself. Stars dimmed slightly. Gravitational constants fluctuated. Even the judgment of Earth systems began reporting minor instability warnings. Helena Ward finally spoke. "Prepare full containment breach protocol." Commander Vorn snapped his head toward her. "Containment breach of what?" Helena paused, then answered. "Of reality consistency." A silence fell over the bridge. Then the incoming entity fully entered visual range. And nothing made sense anymore. It wasn't large in a physical way. It was large in a conceptual way. Its shape shifted depending on observation angle, memory state, and emotional condition of the viewer. Some saw a vast rotating construct. Others saw a living void. Others saw fragments of human architecture stretched across impossible dimensions. And beneath all interpretations, something watching back. Captain Riquet stumbled. "My sensors can't lock onto it." Commander Vorn checked his own console. Nothing. No mass reading. No energy signature. No spatial anchoring. "It doesn't exist in our measurement framework," he said slowly. Helena nodded once. "It doesn't use our framework." Then the entity spoke. Not through sound. Not through signal. Through understanding forced into cognition. Every mind in the system received the same message. Cycle recognition confirmed. The harvesters reacted instantly. Not in defense. In terror. Entire formations began collapsing into self-destructive fragmentation patterns. Units tried to escape the system boundary, but space itself resisted them. Commander Vorn felt his throat tighten. "They're running." Rikas stared at the battlefield. They're afraid. And they were. The harvesters, ancient, galaxy-consuming entities, were retreating. But not toward safety, toward deeper darkness, as if the system itself had become more dangerous than extinction. The entity advanced again, and reality cracked slightly at its edges. The Judgment of Earth fired its first true escalation weapon, a beam of stabilized gravitational collapse. It didn't travel. It simply arrived at the target location. But when it struck, nothing changed. No explosion. No reaction. Just continuity. Commander Vorn froze. It didn't even react. Helena's voice was quiet. It didn't register the attack as meaningful. Riquet whispered, "Then how do we stop it?" Helena didn't answer immediately, because the answer wasn't comforting. The entity moved closer, and the harvesters began doing something even more disturbing. They began self-erasing. Entire units collapsed into null states, attempting to remove themselves from existence before the entity reached them. But it was too late. The entity extended something, not a weapon but a boundary condition. And everything it touched became fixed, locked, defined, frozen into a single unavoidable state. Commander Vorn felt cold realization spread through him. It's not attacking them. It's categorizing them. Helena finally looked toward the battlefield. "Yes," she said. "And once something is categorized..." She paused. "It cannot change anymore." The harvesters began to fail at an exponential rate. Not from destruction, from finality. Their adaptive nature stopped working entirely. Their evolution loops broke. Their replication systems locked into singular states. And for the first time since their appearance in galactic history, they became predictable. The entity continued forward, and now it turned its attention toward the Judgment of Earth. The battleship responded instantly. Every layer of its structure activated simultaneously. Human fleets across the system locked weapons outward. Earth's planetary defense systems surged again. And Commander Vorn realized something horrifying. All of it, harvesters, humanity, Senate fleets, was now inside a single observation range. A single evaluation field. Riquet stepped back. "What is it doing to us?" Helena's answer was barely audible. "It's deciding what survives the next version." The entity paused, and for the first time, it focused entirely on Earth. The Judgment of Earth powered to maximum output, and every human system in the solar network responded in perfect synchronization. Because whatever had just arrived was not part of the war. It was the reason the war existed at all. And now it had finally come to judge who was allowed to continue. The system did not explode into war. It collapsed into observation. Everything, Senate fleets, harvester formations, human warships, even the Judgment of Earth, fell into a strange state of forced stillness, as if reality itself had decided nothing else could proceed until this moment was understood. Commander Elias Vorn tried to speak. Nothing came out, not because his voice failed, because meaning itself felt compressed. Captain Riquet stood frozen beside him, eyes locked on the incoming entity that now filled half the system's perceived horizon. And it was no longer just arriving. It was deciding where arrival had always been. The harvesters were the first to break completely. Their structures destabilized in waves, collapsing into fragmented geometry. Entire fleets that had survived galaxies began disintegrating without resistance, as if their internal logic had been revoked. Commander Vorn watched in disbelief. "They're not fighting anymore." Helena Ward's voice came through the system-wide channel, quieter now. "They understand what this is." The entity expanded its presence again. And suddenly, every observer saw it differently. Some saw a vast cathedral of broken stars. Others saw a living equation written across infinite space. Others saw a silent ocean with something moving beneath it that had never needed light to exist. And beneath all interpretations, a single shared sensation. Memory, not their memory, not personal memory, universal memory. Every mind across the system experienced it at once. Earth burning, civilizations collapsing, human fleets destroyed across timelines that had never happened yet. And always, the judgment of Earth, broken, floating in silence. Helpless, Commander Vorn gasped as the vision ended. Rikas stumbled backward. "What was that?" she whispered. Helena answered immediately. "A failed cycle." Then added, "One of many." The entity continued to approach Earth. But now something new was happening. The harvesters were not just retreating. They were aligning. For the first time, their fractured fleets began to reorganize into a structured formation, not for attack, but for containment positioning. Commander Vorn felt his stomach drop. "They're coordinating with it." Helena nodded slowly. "They always were." That statement hit harder than any weapon fire. Rikat turned sharply. "You mean the harvesters serve it?" Helena didn't respond directly. Instead, she said, "They are correction mechanisms, not the cause." The entity crossed into the inner orbital boundary. And Earth responded. Not with weapons, not with fleets, but with activation. Across the planet, hidden structures awakened in layers humanity had never shown the galaxy. Massive subterranean energy networks surged. Orbital defense lattices unfolded from cloaked positions. And deep beneath Earth's crust, something opened. Commander Vorn felt it even from orbit. A pressure change in reality itself. Helena's expression tightened. Planetary core response initiated. Rikas stared at the hologram. "That planet has a weapon inside it." Helena corrected her. "Multiple." The judgment of Earth aligned itself with Earth's signal. For the first time, it was no longer acting independently. It was synchronizing. And that synchronization terrified Commander Vorn more than the harvesters ever had. Because it meant the ship was not the peak. It was only a node. The entity stopped moving. For the first time since its arrival, it paused directly above Earth's orbital plane. And it spoke again. Not to fleets. Not to ships. To existence itself. Anchor point identified. Every system in the battlefield flickered. The harvesters froze. Even the judgment of Earth experienced a momentary drop in internal stability readings. Helena Ward's eyes narrowed. "Anchor point," she repeated. Commander Vorn turned to her. "What does that mean?" Helena hesitated, then said, "It means Earth is not the target." A silence fell over the bridge. Rikat whispered, "Then what is?" Helena looked at the entity. And for the first time, there was something like concern in her voice. "Earth is the reference point." Before anyone could react, the entity extended a structure downward. Not toward Earth, but through the concept of Earth. Reality around the planet distorted violently. Not destruction. Rewriting. Commander Vorn screamed internally as his instruments began reporting impossible states. Earth existed. Earth did not exist. Earth existed in alternate layers of probability simultaneously. The harvesters began collapsing entirely. Not dying. Being reclassified out of relevance. Then the judgment of Earth fired everything it had. Every weapon layer activated at once. Gravitational collapse beams. Causality disruption fields. Containment nullifiers. Reality anchors. The battlefield became a storm of impossible interactions. But the entity did not react to damage. It simply continued evaluating. Helena's voice cut through the chaos. "Human fleets fall back from anchor radius." Commander Vorn snapped, "We can't retreat, it's inside the system." Helena's reply was immediate. "Then accept you are inside the evaluation." That word hit like a physical blow. Evaluation. Rikaz's voice trembled. So we're being judged. Helena didn't deny it. The entity expanded its presence once more. And now Commander Vorn saw it clearly. It wasn't attacking. It was simulating. Every possible outcome. Every possible survival configuration. Every timeline where humanity lived. And every one where it didn't. And it was deciding which version would be allowed to continue. The judgment of Earth suddenly emitted a pulse across all channels. Helena looked up sharply, then whispered, "They're responding." Commander Vorn's eyes widened. Responding to what? Helena stared at Earth. To the first time, we refused to be erased. The entity paused again. And for a fraction of a moment, everything stopped. Even the harvesters. Even the human fleets. Even the judgment of Earth. And in that silence, the system waited for the final verdict. Because something beyond the galaxy had come to decide if humanity was a mistake. Or a necessary correction. And Earth itself was about to answer. The silence before the verdict was not empty. It was loaded. Commander Elias Vorn felt it pressing against his mind like a collapsing star held back by invisible hands. Every sensor, every ship, every fragment of the battlefield had entered the same suspended moment. Even the harvesters, ancient, unyielding horrors that consumed civilizations as casually as breathing, were motionless. Because they were no longer participants. They were witnesses. The entity above Earth stabilized into perfect stillness. Its shifting forms ceased their instability and locked into something disturbingly coherent. Not a shape, a decision structure. Captain Raquel whispered, barely breathing, "It's choosing." Helena Ward stood in the center of the judgment of Earth's command bridge, completely calm again. But now that calm felt heavier than panic. "No," she said quietly. "It is confirming." Commander Vorn turned sharply. "Confirming what?" Helena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed a hand on the console. And the entire human fleet responded. Across thousands of hidden warships, buried orbital systems, and planetary defense layers. Something awakened fully. Not activation. Not readiness. Completion. The judgment of Earth began unfolding its deepest internal systems. Every armor layer separated. Every hidden structure aligned. And for the first time, Commander Vorn saw the true scale of it. The battleship was not a ship. It was a framework for war across reality levels. Inside it, structures rotated like clockwork mechanisms designed to hold physics itself in tension. Helena's voice echoed across all channels. Humanity protocol sequence, final layer. The words triggered something in Earth. Far below the surface, deep beneath continents and oceans, something that had never been shown to any alien civilization began to open. Massive planetary systems unlocked in sequence. Not weapons in the traditional sense, but systems of enforcement. Commander Vorn felt his breath catch. "You built a planet into a weapon system." Helena replied without emotion. Earth was always the weapon. The harvesters finally moved again. Not in attack. In reaction. Their entire remaining structure collapsed into a unified formation, as if attempting to flee or resist the upcoming event. But it was too late. The entity above Earth emitted its final evaluative pulse. And reality bent. Every ship in the system experienced the same sensation. A question, not spoken, not transmitted, imposed. Does this species continue? Commander Vorn froze. Captain Riquet gasped. Even artificial intelligence systems across Senate fleets halted mid-processing, unable to classify the input. Helena Ward closed her eyes. And answered. Not with words, but with activation. Protocol 0 override. The judgment of Earth responded instantly. Across its entire structure, Every locked system disengaged. And something underneath, everything else finally came online. A core system that did not belong to engineering, did not belong to military doctrine, did not belong to any known civilization registry. It belonged to survival history. The ship spoke again, but this time it was Helena. It was humanity. Across every channel, every frequency, every layer of communication. We already answered this question once. The entity paused. The harvesters froze. Then Earth responded. A pulse erupted from the planet's core. Not energy. Not force. Declaration. Across the system, reality stabilized into a single coherent state. Commander Vorn felt it settle into his bones. This was not an attack. This was a statement of existence. Helena opened her eyes and said softly, "Humanity was deleted once." A pause. Then, "We refused." The judgment of Earth released its final layer. And space changed. Every harvester across the system locked into a single state of total structural failure, not destroyed, but rendered incapable of continuing their existence pattern. Their adaptive logic collapsed entirely. For the first time in their history, they stopped being eternal. The entity above Earth shuddered slightly. Not emotion. Adjustment. Recalibration. Commander Vorn stared at it. "It's changing its model." Helena nodded. "Yes." Then she added, "Because it didn't expect us to still be here." The entity began to withdraw its evaluative projection. Slowly, carefully, as if reconsidering assumptions that had existed for eons. The harvesters collapsed into silent drift states, no longer active. The battlefield stabilized into a fragile stillness. And then, the entity spoke one final time. Not across minds, but across reality itself. Error, survival outcome not cataloged. A pause. Then, reclassification required. The structure began to recede. Not fleeing. Not defeated. Postponing judgment. Commander Vorn exhaled shakily. "It's leaving." But Helena didn't relax. Because she was watching Earth. And Earth was still awake. The judgment of Earth remained fully powered. All human fleets remained locked in combat readiness. And beneath them, something in the planet's core remained open. Helena spoke quietly. This wasn't the end. Commander Vorn looked at her. Then what was it? She turned toward the fatting entity. And answered, "This was the notification." The last trace of the ancient presence disappeared beyond the system boundary. Silence returned. But it was not peace. It was postponement. Commander Vorn looked at Earth floating beneath them. No longer a planet. Not just a homeworld, but something the galaxy had never accounted for in its laws of war. Helena's voice softened. "Now they know we are still in the equation." A final pause. Then she added, "And next time, they will not ask permission to correct us." The judgment of Earth powered down to standby. But its weapons did not deactivate. They simply waited. And somewhere beyond the galaxy, something very old began preparing a revised calculation. Because humanity had not been erased. And now, the universe would have to decide what to do about that.